This woman spent 3 weeks secretly nursing a wild leopard back to health. She thought she'd never see it again, until one rainy night when it returned with something that made her cry tears of joy. Amara had seen many things in her 43 years living at the edge of the great forest. She had watched elephants dance in the moonlight and heard lions sing their ancient songs. But she had never seen anything like what crawled into her garden that morning. The leopard was barely alive. Its golden coat was matted with blood, and one of its front legs hung at an odd angle. The magnificent cat that should have been prowling the treetops was now dragging itself across the red dirt, leaving a trail of pain behind it. Most people would have run. Most people would have grabbed their children and locked their doors. But Amara wasn't most people. She looked into those amber eyes and saw something that made her heart skip a beat. Not fear, but desperate hope. Amara's hands shook as she watched the leopard struggle to breathe. Each breath seemed like it might be its last. The beautiful creature had collapsed near her tomato plants, too weak to go any further. Her mind raced with questions. How had it gotten hurt? Why had it come to her? And most importantly, what could she possibly do to help a wild leopard? But her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. When someone needs help, you don't ask questions first. You help first, then ask questions. Taking a deep breath, Amara stepped closer. The leopard's eyes followed her movement, but it didn't try to run or attack. It simply watched as if asking, "Will you help me, or will you let me die?" "You're going to be okay," Amara whispered, though she wasn't sure the leopard understood her words. What mattered was her voice, soft and steady as morning rain. She ran inside her small house and gathered everything she could think of: clean water, strips of cloth torn from her oldest dress, honey from her kitchen, and the healing herbs her grandmother had taught her to use. The leopard didn't fight when Amara approached with her supplies. It watched her with eyes that seemed ancient and wise, as if it knew exactly why it had chosen her garden, her kindness, over all the other places it could have gone to die. Amara knelt beside the injured animal and began to clean the wounds. "The forest spirits brought you to me," she said softly. "They knew I would not turn you away." The leopard's leg was broken, but not beyond hope. Amara had learned much about healing from her grandmother, who had been known throughout their village for her gentle hands and powerful medicines. Working carefully, she cleaned each cut and scrape. The leopard winced but never growled or tried to bite. It seemed to understand that this human was trying to help, not harm. The hardest part was setting the broken leg. Amara had to gather long sticks from her garden and tear up an entire bedsheet to make a proper splint. All the while, she talked to the leopard, explaining what she was doing and why. "This will hurt, but it will help you heal," she said, gently straightening the broken bone. The leopard closed its eyes and endured the pain with the dignity of a true wild creature. Behind her house, Amara built a small shelter from old wooden boards and a piece of tin roofing. It wasn't much, but it would keep the leopard dry and hidden from curious neighbors. She helped the injured cat move to its new home, supporting its weight as best she could. The leopard was heavier than she had expected, all muscle and bone beneath that soft fur. For the first 3 days, the leopard barely moved. It slept most of the time, waking only to drink the water Amara brought and eat small pieces of meat. She could only afford to give it scraps from her own meals, but the leopard seemed grateful for every bite. Amara found herself checking on her patient every few hours. Each time she saw those amber eyes open to greet her, she felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the African sun. As days turned into weeks, the leopard grew stronger. It began to move around the small shelter, testing its healing leg. The bone had set well, though it would always be a little crooked. Amara's neighbors started to wonder why she seemed so tired, why she disappeared for hours each day. Her friend Kasai asked why she was buying extra meat at the market when she could barely afford food for herself. But Amara couldn't tell them about her secret patient. They would not understand. They would say she was crazy, or worse, they would want to kill the leopard out of fear. So she made up stories about feeling sick, about needing more rest. She hated lying to her friends, but some secrets were worth keeping. By the 3rd week, the leopard was strong enough to stand for long periods. It would pace around its shelter, testing its muscles, preparing for the day when it would return to the wild. Amara noticed it watching the forest with longing in its eyes. She knew that day was coming soon, and her heart felt heavy with the thought. One morning, she arrived at the shelter to find the leopard sitting up straight, alert and proud. It looked at her with clear, bright eyes and made a sound she had never heard before, a low rumble that wasn't quite a growl, wasn't quite a purr. "You're feeling better, aren't you?" Amara said, smiling through the sadness she felt building inside her. "You're ready to go home." On the morning of the 22nd day, Amara brought breakfast to find the shelter empty. The leopard had left without a sound, without a goodbye. Only a few golden hairs on the ground proved it had ever been there at all. She touched the spot where it had slept and whispered, "Go well, my friend. Live a good life in the forest." Part of her had hoped for some kind of farewell, but she understood. Wild animals belonged in the wild, not saying goodbye to humans in backyard shelters. Life returned to what had been normal before a dying leopard changed everything. Amara tended her small garden, sold vegetables at the market, and tried not to think about amber eyes and golden fur. But sometimes, late at night, she felt like she was being watched. Not in a scary way, more like having a guardian angel looking out for her. 6 weeks passed quietly. The rainy season began, and Amara spent most of her time indoors, listening to water drum against her tin roof and reading old books by candlelight. Her friends said she seemed different somehow, lighter and more peaceful. They asked if she had fallen in love, and Amara would just smile and change the subject. How could she explain that she had fallen in love? With the magic of trust between two different worlds. She had started to believe that chapter of her life was over, a beautiful memory to treasure but never to repeat. Then came the night that proved her wrong. The sound that woke her was unlike anything she had ever heard. It wasn't quite a purr, wasn't quite a call. It was something in between, something that seemed to be speaking directly to her heart. Amara grabbed her flashlight and stepped outside into the warm rain. At first, she saw nothing but darkness and falling water. Then her light caught a reflection, 2 amber eyes watching her from the edge of her garden. The leopard stood there, no longer thin and broken. It was beautiful and strong, its coat thick and healthy despite the rain. But it wasn't alone. Behind it, 3 small shadows moved in the darkness. Baby leopards, their spots dark and perfect, their eyes bright with curiosity. They couldn't have been more than a few weeks old. Amara's breath caught in her throat. The leopard had not just survived, it had become a mother. For a moment, nobody moved. The rain fell between them like a curtain made of silver beads. Then the mother leopard stepped forward, her cubs following close behind. She stopped just an arm's length away from Amara and made that strange sound again, part purr, part song. Then she did something that made Amara's eyes fill with tears. The leopard gently pushed her cubs forward, toward Amara. One by one, the tiny cats approached the human who had saved their mother's life. They sniffed her hands, rubbed against her legs, and purred in voices too big for their small bodies. The mother watched this introduction with what could only be described as pride. She had brought her most precious gifts to show the woman who had shown her that not all humans were to be feared. "They're perfect," Amara whispered, kneeling in the mud to get closer to the babies. "They're absolutely perfect." The visit lasted only a few magical minutes. The mother leopard called to her cubs with a soft growl, and they obediently returned to her side. Before leaving, she approached Amara one last time. The great cat pressed her forehead against Amara's hand for just a moment, a gesture of thanks that needed no translation. Then she turned and disappeared into the forest with her babies, leaving only paw prints in the mud to prove they had been there at all. Amara stayed kneeling in her garden long after they were gone, rain mixing with happy tears on her face. She had saved 1 life and been blessed to witness 3 more beginning their journey in the world. From that night forward, Amara never felt alone. Sometimes she would find small gifts at the edge of her garden, a perfect feather, an unusually beautiful stone, a flower that didn't grow anywhere nearby. She knew they were messages from her friends in the forest, reminders that kindness creates connections that last forever. The neighbors still didn't understand why Amara seemed so happy, why she hummed while she worked and smiled at secrets only she knew. But Amara didn't need them to understand. She had learned that some of life's most beautiful moments happen quietly, between heartbeats, when we choose love over fear. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, love comes back to say thank you.